Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, of course. And we got our Oscar nominations the other day. My mourning period is over. My grieving period for my dearly departed Wicked for Good has settled after a few days. And I decided to go ahead and give you my early predictions for the winners for the upcoming Academy Awards. I always do this every year before we get the major precursors like the BAFTA wins, the Screen Actors Guild, which is now the Actor Awards. Those are the last two kind of major precursors hanging out there in the balance. Once we have those, things will come a little bit more into focus. So I'm going to do at least two more of these videos leading up to the Academy Awards where I give you who I think is going to win, if that changes. So this is kind of a blind guess, if you will, although some of them are no-brainers, but of course the precursors could shake things up. As we saw this past Thursday, you never really know what's going to happen on awards season, especially when the Academy throws some curveballs into the mix, because in looking at the timeline here, for the precursor trackers, you will see that things are a bit switched up this season, as we're going to be getting the BAFTA nominations this upcoming Tuesday the 27th, which of course is after we receive the Oscar nominations, and that does not always happen. So now it's a situation where, are the BAFTAs influenced by what the Oscars did? The voting window for the BAFTAs might lead us to believe not really, but the way these things shake out is always a little unpredictable, which makes it frustrating for somebody that does predictions every single damn week. So again, these are my pre-BAFTA nominations, and of course wins, and pre-SAG or Actor Award wins. Let's get into it. These are just the top 8 top-of-the-line categories I'm going to go over on this video. Although if you're into it, please follow me over on the Award Expert app, as I will be keeping my predictions updated at least weekly over there. And then of course, as things happen on the circuit, I try to update them in real time when I'm laying in bed or giving my kid a bath or whatever. I'll update my predictions. So follow me on there and you can see real-time updates in all the other categories as well. And we will start with adapted screenplay. We'll do the 2 writing categories first. So I think both of these categories for writing, I think, are what I was categorizing as no-brainers. I see Paul Thomas Anderson winning here for One Battle After Another. I'm also going to give you a reverse card, or if One Battle or whatever the winner in that category was not to win, what would be the swap out there? That's what the reverse Uno card is. And then my wild card pick is one that could kind of come out of left field, that's been showing a little more strength than maybe a lot of us thought. And it could shock and surprise, but honestly, in this category, I don't think that's even remotely possible, really, for the reverse card even. I think this is Paul Thomas Anderson's for One Battle. By the way, I love this group. I went 5 for 5 in my predictions. This is the correct group if you're talking about screenplay. Next up, we'll be looking at original screenplay. This is another one that I think is a little more iffy, but I'm still going like 70% Ryan Coogler here for Sinners. Sinners was so strong, as I'm sure you guys have heard by now. It broke the record for the most nominations for any film, as it got 16. If stunts were in the mix, which we're going to be getting in a couple years, it probably would have gotten 17, as it would have been eligible in that category too. So it got nominated everywhere, with the exception, I believe, of lead actress, which was only because there was really not a candidate for that category, or that probably would have been in play too. So this is a record that's going to stick around for a long, long time, I would suspect. So it is a very strong film. And as we go through these predictions here, and of course as I update them over the coming weeks, you got to start thinking of the package that these films and these winners are ultimately going to have. Using Sean Baker and Honora as an analogy from last year, which is in recent memory, he had a great basket that he was taking on stage with him to win the Best Picture prize, right? Because he had editing, first of all, which, the filmmakers don't always edit their own films, but he had that even, which was an additional thing. But he also had screenplay, he had director, and he had an acting prize, in this case, the lead acting prize for Mikey Madison. That was a very, very strong basket to take on stage with you. Now, Sinners and One Battle After Another from PTA are very neck and neck in terms of a Best Picture prize. And a lot of people have been saying, with the 16 nominations and the obvious strength of Sinners in the industry, could it beat One Battle After Another? Could it kind of upset, even though I don't even really know you could categorize that as an upset at this point, One Battle After Another? And I think it definitely could. We will get to the Best Picture slide here in just a minute. But I think nonetheless, if it's going to do that, Ryan Coogler has to win screenplay. And then PTA has to win screenplay as well, which I had him doing. I think this is Coogler's Oscar. If nothing else happens, which of course they will win other things, he's definitely winning this. I do think a reverse swap is Jafar Panahi and team there for It Was Just an Accident. And the main reason I say that is because that film underperformed really in the latter half of awards season. But even at the Oscars, as it only got the International Feature nomination and here for Original Screenplay. The screenplay is a huge strength in that film, but Jafar Panahi's narrative is also very, very strong. So with the voting body and the international influence, he could get enough votes to push him over Coogler. But again, it's like a 70% Coogler, 30% Panahi, or even less, really, 20%. So I don't think it's going to happen. And then my wild card is Blue Moon, because if that movie is stronger than we think it is with the Academy specifically and those voters, it could do some crazy things. You know, it showed up here, and of course it showed up for Ethan Hawke, an actor, and I thought it was going to show up in Best Picture, but that 10th spot went to somebody else. We'll talk about here in a second. I actually like F1, so. But at the same time, I thought Blue Moon was going to sneak in there. But it did get this nomination, and that is a wild card that I give like a 5 to 10% chance. It's probably not going to happen. Sinners is your winner for Original Screenplay. And going to the acting prizes, this is where you're going to see some big swings for me in the early part of the winning predictions here. This could obviously change when we get BAFTA and SAG. So what I'm doing now is I'm projecting what I think is going to happen at those two bodies. Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners got nominated at SAG, the Actor Awards. She is on the BAFTA long list that I think is going to lead to a nomination. Now, if it doesn't, this is null and void. But if it does in a few days, then I'm probably going to stick with what I've got here. She's British, so she's going to be a clear favorite, if you will, or at least a huge possibility for the BAFTA award if she ends up getting nominated. And she's a previous nominee with that body. They also love Sinners. It showed up on a lot of their long list, and I assume is going to lead to at least a handful of nominations. And we know it broke the Academy record, like I already said. So it's not like the industry is shortchanging Sinners by any regard. So my mentality right now on January 24th, and it's actually been this way for a few weeks now, is with the way the voting windows are set up and the timeline for award season, my inherent default kind of prediction for the supporting actress and actor Oscars, because they're kind of up in the air. A lot of these performers are going to get a lot of a portion of the vote. So they're pretty even across the board, at least like the top 4 in both categories. Whoever wins the BAFTA is going to be my Oscar winner in my predictions, most likely. If that gets shaken up along the way from other precursors, then I might change that tune. But right now, I think Wunmi's going to win the BAFTA. That's what I currently think. And that is a hunch for the most part, because she's got to get nominated first. But with the lineage that she has with that body, and with the way the voting is set up, the Oscar voting starts the day after the BAFTAs hand out their prizes. We know they love Sinners, 16 nominations, and Wunmi is adored, and it's one of the most memorable performances in a supporting role all year. I'm so glad she's come this far, even if nothing else happens for her. So I've got her as kind of my surprise pick right now. And I'll show you guys this in a couple months when it looks like I'm a genius or was way off. That's what I'm going to do, and I'll adjust over the next few weeks. Teyana Taylor is the obvious swap there, and that's what most people's winning prediction is going to be right now. And the reason being is because she's in the strongest film, she has the Golden Globe win, and she's also at all the other precursors necessary if she translates the long list at BAFTA to a nomination, which I assume she will. So on paper, she might be the strongest. But again, a lot of people have this like, not mental block necessarily, but this just like cloud in their mind that one battle is the front runner. And I tend to think that too, so I'm not saying they're wrong, but we are kind of forgetting how strong Sinners is when we say that. Because on paper, and you're looking at it for stats for what it is, Sinners should really be the front runner. I mean, 16 nominations is crazy. Now, if you start to factor in the critics wins, and you look at the resumes, it's a little more even, and one battle does come out on top there, PTA specifically. But when I'm talking about the haul and the basket that you have to take on stage with you, these movies have to have things to bring with them. Is one battle going to have an acting prize? Think about that. Is Sinners going to have an acting prize? I don't know. I've got Wunmi being that acting prize. But that acting prize is a huge piece to getting that basket haul to take up on the stage with you, especially for Best Picture. In those top-of-the-line categories. Right now, I think it's Wunmi, which would put Sinners in the slight edge. What am I doing? I do think Teyana is the obvious switch. And Inga Ibsdottir Lilius is my wild card because she could also win the BAFTA. So if Inga, let's just say, goes on to win the BAFTA, then that's probably who I'm going to predict to win the Oscar. So they're kind of interchangeable right now. I think Wunmi has a leg up as being a previous nominee there, not so much as a newcomer, especially with the UK. Congratulations to Elle Fanning, by the way. I mean, you guys know Queen Ariana Grande is my #1 of all time, and Wicked just fucking died suddenly at the beginning of the announcements on Thursday. But I am very, very happy for Elle Fanning, and I think that may have got lost in the shuffle in my reactions video. But I love her. If you guys have never seen her play Catherine the Great in The Great, a Hulu series with Nicholas Hoult, by the way, some of the best acting you will ever see is her in that series. She's phenomenal. She's a great actress that is young, but she's been doing it for a long time, her and her sister. And I'm so glad that she got the notoriety for a movie that I love, Sentimental Value. So I'm happy for her and her nomination. Supporting actor is almost the same commentary and same reasoning for me, so it'll be a little bit shorter here. I think Stellan Skarsgård, even without the actor nomination, wins the BAFTA and then will win the Oscar. On top of that, he has the Golden Globe, which I didn't even predict him to win there. I predicted one of the One Battle boys, Benicio, to win there. But I do think he wins the BAFTA and then goes on to the Oscars. Same mentality. And actually, he's a little bit stronger because he has the career narrative, right? Long time in Hollywood, long time in movies. Not a lot of flowers to show for it. I think Benicio's the swap. It's got to be one of the One Battle boys. It could be Sean Penn. I don't know what I'm going to do with the actor awards predictions yet. I think Sean Penn is kind of based on what they do, the front runner to win this category at the SAG. But at the same time, you know, I don't know. I mean, the Sean Penn's kind of persona in the public eye outside of awards is not seen as favorable. You know, he's vaping at the table at the Globes, and he's not showing up to other junkets and promotional activities for the movie, and he doesn't go to a lot of award shows. He's kind of denounced them in interviews, especially the Oscars, and I don't know, he's just very outspoken against the whole system, so that might hurt him at the end of the day. I think Benicio is probably stronger in that regard just because he's loved by everyone and he does not do those types of things when it comes to the awards system. So he would be my swap out, and then my wild card is Delroy Lindo because he is going to be on a hype wave right now from getting the best and most memorable nomination on Thursday morning that nobody saw coming, or very few people saw coming. I didn't. I thought if Sinners was going to get in, it would be Miles Caton because of his surprise at the SAG Awards. But yeah, that was my favorite thing if you guys saw my reaction. Delroy finally getting his Oscar nomination. And people are going to be so inspired by that. They're going to be so happy for him that they may be throwing him votes. And, you know, depending on what the BAFTAs do, that could go a long way as well. But he is a wild card if they start to vote on that career narrative piece and their love for Sinners, which is obviously strong. Going on to the lead categories, these are pretty easy, both of them, honestly, in my opinion. This could change in lead actor as we go a little further down the way. But I think Jessie Buckley's a sweeper this season. I've been saying that all along. I don't see any reason why she wouldn't win the BAFTA, which will be right before voting opens for the Oscars. You know, she's thought to be the performance of the year, at least from a female perspective. So I've got her winning. I don't think there's any reason to not pick her to win right now. If she shows weakness and it starts to lose here and there, then maybe, but I also don't see that happening. So Paul Mescal missed in supporting actor, right? So the movie showed a hint of weakness, but I don't think anything can stop her performance as Agnes and Hammond. I've got her winning. Like I said, I would need to see some clear evidence that was not going to happen before I change that. I do think Rose Byrne's the swap out. You know, what Rose Byrne has going against her, though, is that it's the only nomination that movie received on Thursday. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. It's not going to have anything else. That was the same situation that we were into the previous slide with Amy Madigan, and why I didn't pick her to win is they just don't have anything else. Weapons and If I Had Legs, you know, that it's just not going to be strong enough broadly across the Academy to get the votes to bring her up over a powerful performance that you know is going to be a lot of #1s in Jessie Buckley. So I don't think Rose Byrne can overtake her, but somebody that could, again, it's like a 20% chance, is Renate Ransva. For Sentimental Value, if they go nuts for this movie like they did in the nominations, then watch out, you know. And she has like a mini overdue narrative too, because of the Worst Person in the World fiasco from a few years ago. Still can't believe she didn't get in there for that one. And she's well respected and adored in the industry. She's got the international body behind her, most likely, especially among this group. So I think it's Jessie Buckley's, but Byrne and Reinsva are like right there waiting to spoil, and really don't count out the other two either. Emma Stone and Kate Hudson. I mean, they have, you know, career narratives and longevity in Hollywood, and their favorite. I mean, Emma Stone wins every time she's in the category. So, I mean, I'm simplifying it, but a lot, you know, so she's always around. So really, this is a toss-up category, but I think Buckley's just too strong to lose this year. Lead actor, I think, is Timothée Chalamet. I do think there might be a hiccup at the SAG, at the Actor Awards. He could lose there, not because he should lose, but because if the body factors in that they just gave him the award last year for A Complete Unknown, Will they give it to him again? I don't really know what I'm going to predict there. I'm going on a buddy's podcast in a couple weeks to come up with my predictions, so I got to figure it out. But right now, my inclination is that he wins it if I'm merely basing it on merit of the performances and how he's been doing so far in the precursors. The only reason I wouldn't predict Timmy to win at SAG is if I think they're going to pass over him because he just won. If that happens, I think it goes to somebody like Leo or Ethan Hawke. Michael B. Jordan could also spoil. And of course, Wagner Moore did not get in there as the international piece, and apparently they didn't watch anything that wasn't made in America last year. Let me just put it this way, because I'm doing Oscar predictions right now. I don't think what happens at SAG is going to affect this unless the waves on the circuit and the chatter is just so loud that it can't be ignored for whoever does win. Right now, I think it's Timothée Chalamet's regardless of what happens at SAG, and I will have to get back to you on what I predict at that body when the time comes. I think Leo's a swap out. The strength of one battle is really the reason why. Kind of like I said with Tiana Taylor in her category, they're going to have the benefit of being in that PTA film that's everywhere. You know, Sinners is the only film that's nominated more. And, you know, I think that Leo is a name that a lot of people think should have a second Oscar by now, at least. So that could help him. A dark horse for me in this category, actually all of them are wild card dark horses, because they all have a argument to get to the win on Oscars night. I think Ethan Hawke is the real wild card dark horse that would be the most surprising between Wagner Moore, him, and Michael B. Jordan, because Blue Moon serves at the very, very end as Sony Pictures Classics. He has all that going for him. It got into screenplay. Blue Moon is also Oscar material. It is an Oscar baity type of film. So it's a good film, but it's also one that plays to the old school sensibilities of the Academy, and it puts Ethan Hawke's best performance, maybe besides First Reformed, which they snubbed, on full display. So I think he could be a wild card if enough people just love him in that movie and they start throwing votes, you know, his way, and it lifts him up over somebody like Timothée Chalamet, especially if he just lost the SAG a couple weeks before that. I don't think so, but that's what I'm looking at. Director, this is where I get into logistics, because it's like Sinners and One Battle are both going to have prizes on Oscars night. And I talk about the basket, right? Both are in editing, right? Both films are nominated for editing, which is a big prize. There's others, obviously, in the mix, too, that are going to add to their basket. But those specifically. So they both have screenplay. PTA wins director. What if Sinners wins editing? They're literally even. Who has an acting prize at that point? If you are looking at my predictions and them coming to fruition, the only one of those two films that would have an acting prize up to this point would be Sinners for Wunmi Mosaku. I've got Timothée Chalamet winning, I've got Jessie Buckley winning, and I've got Stellan Skarsgård winning, which are not either of those films. So that would put Coogler in the lead for the Best Picture. Could we be looking at a split situation? Maybe. Am I going to predict that today? I'll tell you right now. I do think PTA wins director. Okay, I've got him winning director. I think even with the strength of Sinners and even with everybody loving Coogler, myself included, what is it, like 13 nominations that PTA has received, I think? No wins. I just don't see how they don't give it to him for this movie. Coogler is just as good, but when you factor in that piece of the buildup, the resume, and the snubs and losses over the years for PTA, I think they give it to him for this one. This movie is well regarded across the industry. High scores, critics groups galore. I think it's PTA's. I think Coogler's the swap out, and I think it actually would be pretty close. I think it might be like a 60-40 split for those two in director. That's what I'm looking at. I do think Joachim Trier is the wild card on the international piece and the love for sentimental value. He, won the European awards. He didn't get into the DGA, though, which shows a little bit of weakness in terms of this branch. But, BAFTAs are coming. Sentimental value did not do well at the SAG, as did no international films. So I don't know if I even really count that as a knock against it. Also, I think Chloe Zhao may be a little bit hurt in gathering votes because she just won a couple years ago for Nomadland. And Marty Supreme's technically a first-time filmmaker, at least on his own. So those are the three dudes that I think stand the best chance to win. But I'm pretty sure PTA wins this in like a 60+% vote poll. And then you were probably wondering, okay, so is he going to predict Sinners to win picture? If I said what's going to happen happens, then I probably will be picking Sinners to win Best Picture. However, right now, after having put one battle after another at my number one in my way too early predictions back in May, I'm not going to go off of it right now. I just don't. I think it's still strong enough to win Best Picture, and that's not even really in question. The question is, how strong is Sinners? What does the 16 nominations translate to? There's a number of examples you can throw out for multiple nominated films that only got 2 or 3 wins at the end of the day. I mean, even last year with Emilia Perez, now of course it had the controversy, etc., but you know, I mean, that got 13 nominations and 2 wins. So I don't think Sinners is only going to get 2 wins, but it's going to be so close. This is a really exciting race because half of the people that do this regularly are going to predict Sinners and the other half are going to predict One Battle. And at the end of the day, we're not really going to know until Oscars night. And that's really exciting to me. I don't know what I'm going to settle on the week of the Oscars when I give you my final predictions. But right now, as I'm sitting here, I think One Battle is still the strongest in the industry and among the voters here. I do think that Sinners could take over that top spot for the most likely to win, but I'm not ready to say it yet. And just full disclosure is what I'm telling you is I'm not ready to say it yet, but I'm also admitting that this is like a 53-47 split. Like it is like really close. And if the tides if the tides keep going this way, then Sinners could be up over here. And it could be the 53% versus One Battle. You know, the winning actor is going to be a big thing on the night of the event. If these nominations come into play and these wins at the BAFTA, etc., and we end up getting what we're getting at the Oscars in terms of winners, I think this is an early kind of general prediction. I think if they both get screenplay, which they should, obviously only one of them is going to get director. If that's PTA, okay, let's just say, which I think it will be, whichever movie gets an acting prize or maybe more than one acting prize wins Best Picture. That's my early kind of general prediction and not locking into a specific movie. Right now, I think that's Wunmi Masaki for Sinners. But if Leo wins, if Teyana Taylor ends up winning, then it's One Battles. I don't know. I mean, that's going to be my mentality when I'm kind of going through my final predictions. But in this early stages, it's fun to kind of brainstorm. Who the hell knows? All right, I wanted to do another video talking about my hits and my misses from nominations morning. I had 10 hits, things that I thought were great, that were unexpected or really surprising or solidified what I wanted to happen. And then 10 that were like, what the fuck is this? Avatar and costumes. I got a lot of pushback on my Kate Hudson hate, even though it wasn't hate, it was just kind of shock. I've coped with it, but I just missed Chase Infinity in that category and Jennifer Lawrence and several others. I might still do that video, but it might be a little bit later. It'll be after the BAFTA nominations because in a couple days I'm going to have my predictions for who's going to get nominated there for you here on the channel. So make sure you subscribe. Let me know what did I miss here in my very early winning predictions for the upcoming Academy Awards. Let me know down below where I was off or who you think is going to win in a category that differs from me. Do you think we're going to get a Sinners One Battle split here, or do you see one of them just running away with it? Let me know all that down below. I will see you out here next time very soon as we talk BAFTA. I don't have a good British accent. I'll try to work on that before the next one. In the garage.